Do you want to know what the benefits of investing in a landlord-friendly environment are and how it can impact your multifamily investment? Well, today that's what we're going to cover in this video. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Paul Macaluso, the Multifamily Renegade, and today I'd like to talk about a recent article that was published in one of our local newspapers regarding the eviction upticks, or what they claim to be our eviction increases year over year and from pre-pandemic levels. So what we have to remember, and in a previous video, I gave you guys my exact 12-step process for multifamily investing success. And one of those 12 steps was making sure you're investing in a landlord-friendly environment. If you haven't already downloaded the free checklist that I provided with that exact 12-step multifamily investment success checklist, please make sure you do. I've dropped a link below in this video so you guys can grab it again. It's a very important 12-step process, has helped me out and got me to where I am today. And I'd love to share it with you guys and give you access to it so you can get some help on your multifamily investment journey as well. So moving on into this particular article that just came out, you guys have to remember it's election season and a lot of articles come out and they try to paint broad pictures to influence public opinion about certain topics. Now, here in Las Vegas, we have had our eviction process change many different times over the course of the last 5 years. When I first started investing in multifamily, things were completely different than what they are today, but it is still very much a landlord-friendly environment. Laws are pro-landlord and pro-business in Clark County and the state of Nevada as a whole. So this article went on to talk about how there have been increases in evictions year over year and from pre-pandemic levels. Now, they ranked Las Vegas, or rather Clark County, as 7th highest for evictions on this list of polled metropolitans or investigated metropolitan areas. Now, I thank the guy, the journalist that actually put this article out, because sometimes they don't put numbers in there to kind of give you guys a full idea. This article was based around research done by the Eviction Labs, which is a group over at Princeton that sticks their nose in local municipalities' business and tries to stir up trouble, in my opinion. I covered a previous article that talked about nuisance evictions in a couple videos back. If you guys haven't seen that, make sure you go over there and check it out. But anyways, this article talked about how Clark County is the 7th highest on this group's list for metropolitans with high eviction rates. Now, they only investigated 34 metropolitans throughout the country. All right. Now, do you guys know how many metropolitans there are throughout the country? Well, there's over 370 metropolitans around the country. So to get a full picture of what's actually going on, they would need to sample a whole heck of a lot more than less than 10% of those metropolitans. I think, in my opinion, they picked and chose who they wanted to put on their list of cities or counties with the highest eviction rates. So moving on in the article, they talked about how there's a 21% increase from pre-pandemic levels. People often forget that during COVID, there were moratoriums on evictions. So if you couldn't pay your rent or decided not to pay your rent, like many people did, lots of people abused this, guys. Don't forget, the government tried to do things the right way and look out for people. And unfortunately, wide majority of people out there took advantage of the system and got over in one way or another. So there was moratoriums in place that did not allow landlords here in Clark County to evict people over the course of over a year during COVID. Now, everybody that was an opponent of not having that moratorium, of saying no moratoriums, tried to stress the fact that the courts are going to get jammed up with cases. And that's exactly what happened. The court is still sifting through cases from COVID. The moratoriums provided several protections for tenants that decided not to pay their rent or who weren't in a position to pay their rent due to being affected by COVID financially. So in this article, they talk about how it's a 7-day eviction process and it only costs landlords $71 to evict somebody. That's not 100% true. It does cost $71 to file the eviction when you get to that point. But leading up to that, you have to file your 7-day notices. And the 7-day notices are, and you have to pay for those, by the way, those are $30. What the article did not talk about was the timelines that it takes to evict people. They made it seem as though it's just 7 days and then an eviction's granted. That's not the case. So just to give you an example, I just filed some non-payment of rent 7-day notices. Now, the 7-day notice goes off of judicial days, and judicial days are counted as Monday through Thursday, excluding holidays. So Fridays are not judicial days. So we filed yesterday, which was the 4th of September. We cannot go back to get our 7-day notices until the 17th of this month. Then on the 18th, if those tenants still have not paid by the 17th or moved out, we can file the eviction or file the summary complaint. The summary complaint takes about 4 to 5 judicial days to get heard by the court. Now, one thing they didn't talk about in this article when it came to the fees that are getting paid, tenants can ask for a fee waiver, and they don't have to pay any fees for their affidavit or contesting of the eviction. Now, if a tenant contests that eviction once it's been filed or contests the notice, you don't find out until you go to file your eviction. So in our case, let's say, for example, these folks that had the 7-day notice filed on them don't pay or don't move out. Come the 18th, when we get ready to file, that we submit our summary complaint to the court. That goes to the court. We wait around to find out if we get a court date or not. If the tenant does contest, then we do get a court date. If they don't contest, the court grants the eviction. We have to wait in limbo. We don't know. We don't get notified if the tenant has contested this in any type of way. So we're waiting around most likely until the 24th of this month to find out whether or not, number one, we get the eviction granted, or number two, we have to go to court to plead our case in front of the judge. And again, we are out the rent, we are out the late fees, we are out the notice fees. All of this money is the burden of the landlord or manager of the property, not the tenant. The moratoriums, what they allowed for is tenants to self-certify whether or not they had been affected financially by COVID. And all that meant was signing your name on a piece of paper saying, yeah, I've been affected by COVID. No explanation, nothing. Just, yes, I've been affected. That was it. So when you think about it, for over a year, people had the opportunity to not pay their rent and just self-certify and never have to worry about getting a court date. I've seen it firsthand in property owners, not myself. Thank God our tenants were very respectable people and did the right things. We had some folks, don't get me wrong, we had some folks that were trying to take advantage of the system, but overall, the tenant base that we were lucky enough to have did the right thing and paid their rents, and we did our best to help them out as well and figured out ways to help the burden that they may or may not have encountered during COVID. So the moratorium allowed them to self-certify and sit in a property rent-free for over a year. And the financial impact that has on most apartment complex owners who, again, if you remember from previous videos, I discussed how 70% of the country's multifamily owners are mom and pop operators. That mean individuals or companies that have 1 to 3 multifamily properties. Okay, so the overwhelming majority of property owners in the multifamily space are mom and pop operators. And that number actually expands when you talk about the different size properties as well. So these big corporations and institutional investors, they're not buying the 20 units or the 15 units. These are mom and pop operators that most likely bought these as a way to hopefully retire off of the income later on in life. And these folks got devastated with that moratorium. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was horrible to see. A lot of people, ended up having to let their properties go, or they had to get people to come in and buy these things at way reduced pricing. So it was a very sad situation all the way around. With the moratorium and the governmental assistance, the tenants were able to go and apply for government funds that would then pay the landlord back rents. Now, during the beginning of this, the previous governor, Sisolak, who was a complete jerk off, he didn't know his asshole from his elbow, and he's a scumbag. And if I'm not mistaken, he's currently being indicted by the FBI or the federal government for misappropriation of funds and unscrupulous business dealings when it comes to COVID testing. So that's another story for another time. Anyways, I digress. The money that was allocated originally for the COVID relief funds were being sent to tenants directly, okay? And tenants were taking that money, living in the rent-free properties, and just splurging on things like buying new cars, going on trips, etc. So people forget that those aspects of this whole COVID relief funds. And then the government got wind of what was going on and said, okay, now we have to cut these checks directly to the landlords. But they put stipulations and rules behind whether you accepted that money or not. So for example, one of the rules that they put in place was, okay, say the tenant fell behind 6 months, they get the COVID relief granted those funds, they can then have a check cut to their landlord to make up that back rent. But by accepting that as a landlord, you accept that rent. And remember, we're still in COVID with the moratoriums. You get that money, but you couldn't evict them if they defaulted on their obligations with you again for over a year. I believe the stipulation was 18 months or something like that. So if they remained in the property and they defaulted again and didn't pay, you couldn't go back after them to evict. So people were playing this revolving door. They would go, they would get the relief funds, they would pay the landlord, they would stop paying again, go through the entire process, get some more relief funds, pay the landlord, and the landlord had absolutely nothing they could do. They were handcuffed. All they could do, since they took the money the first time, they had to continue to take the money that these tenants were getting and playing the system, basically. So this is why it's very important to understand the market that you're investing in with your multifamily properties, understand the ins and outs of how the tenant-landlord relationship works and how the laws are applied, as well as the timelines that it takes for recourse in the event that a tenant doesn't live up to their obligations. And this is exactly why I put together the 12-step multifamily investment success checklist that you guys can download below. So make sure, if you haven't already got a copy of that, that you grab it below. It's 100% free. This is the exact process that I use when I acquire multifamily property. And I want to give it to you guys as well, so you can have another tool in your toolbox for your multifamily investing journey. So that's going to do it for today's video. I thank you guys for watching. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I try to drop 2 videos a week, so make sure that you hit the notification bell when you do subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the videos. I'm Paul Macaluso, the Multifamily Renegade. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Love to hear your feedback. Drop a comment if you like, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.